Hello everybody, this is Tip Top Gaming here today with another Magic the Gathering Arena video. Now today on the Magic Arena Reddit, they did an AMAA, so an Ask Me Almost Anything, where they answered a bunch of community questions, and I originally thought we'd get a few little pieces of information. However, they were pretty open, and what we got was a lot of timeline information. We didn't get a ton of new features that we know are coming, but we got a lot of timeline information. Now, I haven't looked at every single one, which is kind of the beauty. You're going to get to see my live reaction and live reading, but I compiled all of them into a list. I believe there's about 40, so this is going to be a long video, so I might skip some of the boring ones. Can you explain the rationale behind the 10,000 gold entry fee for the Brawladays event? In addition, is there something your team plans to keep in place long term? So this is obviously in response to the Brawlers Guild Hall or Brawladays, whichever one you want to call it, where you had to pay 10,000 gold for a month-long entry, like access to Brawl, where you could play Brawl any day of the week. And this was met with outrage, and so here's his response. Now, there's a lot of responses to this, so let's get into this. Chris Cow here borrowing a community account. To answer Brawl, we need to go back in time a bit. We originally built MTG Arena for standard players. Now we're moving beyond standard, and that means going places which aren't exactly balanced for a standard focused reward structure. That means we need to experiment to find the right balance, which is what we're doing with Brawl. We haven't found the right balance between availability, entry fees, rewards with Brawl. That's why we're testing all three right now. Direct challenge play is outside of daily rewards and the most social and casual way to play Magic. Wednesday Brawl Queue is testing timing availability, and Brawl Hall is testing earn versus reward balance. I think he means Brawlers Guild Hall. Brawl Hall is a series run by Merchant, a MTG Arena YouTuber. Either way, in the fact that 10,000 gold was originally simulating earn rate versus consumption rate of an average player. We haven't gone down the path of a permanent queue with no entry. fee that limits daily rewards, but is that something we're exploring? What do you think? So basically he's saying, hey, the way the economy of the game was set up, it wasn't intended for a lot of formats. And so that's why historic is very timing based. You know, ranked historic isn't there all the time. And that's what they're basically saying, is they're saying that, hey, and I think there's one later where it's like, we need to really redo the economy in order for us to make permanent queues really a thing. But they're basically, instead of saying they're diluting player bases, which used to be their excuse, now they're saying the economy isn't going to be able to handle it, and so they're trying to limit it in some way. But in some ways, I think Brawl and Historic are better than Standard, and I think that while they're going to say that Standard players are being affected, you're also affecting Brawl players now. So I don't super see this, but why don't we see the next response? So later down in this little line of conversation, we get someone said, agreed, people seem to love this new format, but its growth is stifled by its entry fee. I honestly believe that this would be the most popular way to play on MTG Arena if Wizards of the Coast wasn't trying to prevent people. We know there's a lot of folks who love Brawl. Arena is for brawlers, but it's also for a lot of other types. If we made Brawl available 24/7, full daily rewards, it would impact other players by shifting the focus away from other experiences we offer. And if Brawl became the focus, the fundamentals of Arena's economy would have to change, and players may feel forced to play Brawl to play most efficiently. Now, I see what they're saying in the fact that a lot of people play Brawl not with their, like, meta decks. Why? Because they just want to have fun. But if you start being like, hey, here's a bunch of people not playing meta deck, you can go play the best Brawl deck, which is a little harder to figure out what that is, but you can go play that and get a bunch of wins really fast, people might think, oh, I can't play Standard if I want to get my 15 wins quicker. And I do see that. And you also, like, there's just a really difficult balancing act. I just don't think it's really going to be that big of a deal. I think, I don't know. I kind of disagree with this concept. It's just really hard, and obviously the community disagrees based on the points aspect, but there is another response. I personally feel like a free queue as well, but limited daily rewards really puts a damper on that concept. If that is the alternative, a pay queue might be better. It might be nice if the Brawl Hall at least gave some rewards beyond the single card. I do agree, you might be able to do this. You might be able to say 10,000 gold, and then maybe you get, you know, XP, a little bit of bonus XP to play Brawl. But then again, they're saying that they don't want people to feel pressured to play Brawl, so I don't know. Paying 10,000 gold just for the privilege of playing feels extremely bad, even if just some minor further rewards would reduce the sting there. When we were looking at the entry fee for Brawl to balance it with Standard, we saw that 10,000 was about 40% of the rewards an average player would earn over 4 weeks of play. So you're paying 50% of what you'd earn to play Brawl, basically. We are continually analyzing the usage at that price point. So far, about 75% of the number of Wednesday Brawlers are playing Brawlers Guild Hall all the time. Okay, people, don't do this. You can play for free. Don't do this. Okay? We need to show them that this isn't acceptable. We are still looking for other answers that maintain the game's balance. One thing we haven't tweaked yet is changing the daily rewards for Brawl. Also, a Brawl-specific Mastery Pass is something we've been talking about together here, but it isn't on the roadmap. So maybe instead of it being the Eldraine Mastery Pass or Theros Mastery Pass, it's the Standard Mastery Pass for Theros, the Brawl Mastery Pass for Theros, which is basically what Brawl Hall is, except you don't get as many rewards. So maybe it rewards a different type of XP. I actually kind of like that concept. I don't like having to buy multiple Mastery Passes, but if that means you get more rewards by being able to play both formats, that's good. If it's you pay to be able to use Brawl XP for your normal Mastery Pass, that's bad. So it really depends on what they mean by this. Okay, then we have another comment here. We originally built MTG Arena for Standard players. Now we're moving, so that's like the quote. And then he said, I'm honestly curious why something like Brawl, which utilizes the Standard card pool, requires a separate reward structure. What makes it fundamentally different than normal Standard play? And this is kind of a cool point he says here, which I kind of agree with. In Ranked Standard, the goal of most players is to play the most effective decks, which change nicely as the meta develops. In Brawl, many players are looking for the decks that they find fun, which is much less. For example, I play Brawl as Vraska, and it's going to take something pretty massive to move me off that. So I agree with this. I talked about it earlier. Now, this video is already getting kind of long, so let's skip. Or, that's all I have to say. It was recently announced that there was an outsource. Okay, this is the first we're hearing about this. This is an outsource of some Arena dev work to another company. So if you guys didn't hear about that, they basically outsourced their work. Are you able to say what you'll be working on, and what does this open up for teamwork? Basically, what does this mean? We did not make any changes to who is managing Arena's development, which a lot of people thought they did. It's fine. We are working with Skybox Labs to help bring the game to more platforms. And we are working with R&D to make sure our pioneer and historic play experiences are really fun. Should you expect more features rolling out in coming months? Yep. Okay, I want to really analyze this. So what it sounds like is they're saying everything that needs to be kept internal, such as new cards and stuff, that's going to be done by the current team. And then they're going to take, all the work they've been doing to port it to Mac, and they're just going to be up to Skybox Labs, which makes sense based on what Skybox has done in the past. I think this is really awesome. Now, the whole, should you expect more features rolling out in the coming months? Now, do they mean that there's going to be features, just generally there's more features than we have now, or does that mean more than normal? I hope it means more than normal, but I really can't tell. Okay, so this one's a long one. He says, my take for the question is on the ranked draft schedule change, where they are basically flickering it, where it's 2 weeks of the current one, 2 weeks of the not current one. And they basically just say, hey, there's a lot of stuff. And now I'm not going to read all this. They basically just said, how were they getting information? And they said, we take a lot of data into consideration. We have both a Wizards of the Coast BI team and an Arena data team analyzing and acting. Ultimately, we're making the decision based on what we see. We waited 6 months to get lots and lots of data, and we also took some good learnings from Eldraine on how to better update our drafting bots. The bottom line is, it's our best intention to give you lots of reasons to play draft. So it's not a decision we make lightly, and we monitor things closely. One of those things that we learned is it's challenging to keep our bot drafts performing well when their draft format is always available. When we were using this rotating schedule, we were able to keep the bot drafts in better shape. So basically what they're saying is, since they're rotating it, they can, so say it's Theros draft. Then they see what's really trending in Theros draft, and then they can adjust the bot drafts in the 2-week period where it's not Theros, and then it goes back to Theros, and so it allows them to really tweak the bots to their best performance. And I actually think this makes a lot of sense. If they would have said this, I think there would have been a lot less outrage. Any idea of when Arena's coming to Mac? Last time we talked about it, we said it would come after Epic Game Store. That's still the plan. It's not going to be soon after, which they kind of said it was. Catalina, the latest macOS, requires 64-bit, which MTG Arena does not currently support. So there's some background work to do first. So that's probably the main reason Skybox Labs is coming in. They said 2 other platforms with an S, implying more than just Mac, so like tablet and all that. So they said that it was coming soon. It's not really coming soon. I expect it to come by the end of the year, but I expect this is probably the major work that Skybox is doing, is they are getting this to 64-bit architecture and then moving it over to Mac, which is pretty cool, but that means it's going to be coming a little later, which is very unfortunate. Any older sets eventually coming alongside with their draft format? Our goal for 2020 is to get the most relevant backlist cards into Arena to support Pioneer and Historic. There are a lot of cards that don't meet that bar, so we're waiting on those to give dev time the time to make more important ones. We'll see over the next year how remastering sets works out, basically is what he's saying. So basically they're working on getting the most important cards from Pioneer into the game. Now, they said remastered sets are for Historic, and then they also said that really remastered sets are going to work towards Pioneer. So what's the difference between Pioneer and Historic? Because guess what? Pioneer, I mean, I guess Historic goes back further. So Historic is going to be older cards than Pioneer, but right now Pioneer is older cards than Historic. So it's kind of this weird mesh. And if they're going to, I mean, outside of the Historic Anthology cards, those are the only differences between Pioneer and Historic, at least in the long run. I think, I don't know what I would have done, but it's kind of an awkward balance. I don't know what to do, what I would do. So just basically, Historic has more cards than Pioneer. Well, it will once the Pioneer catalog is added. Historic seems like it's going to be like, where do you stop Historic? Like, is Historic just every card in the format or on MTG Arena? So even if they had like legacy cards, are those going to be in Historic now? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Hi, as a tools developer with a question that's a bit more geeky, they changed the logs. Right now, to develop a tool, someone must start by reverse engineering the logs or by building off someone already existing work. This one basically is for people who are into tool making and reading logs, and so I'm not going to really break this one down because I know a lot of you don't care about that. Either way, is there any plan to connect Paper Magic with Arena? The idea of buying a booster pack and getting some sort of in-game currency with Arena would be a great way to connect the two ecosystems. We meet weekly with Tabletop Team to talk about this. There are so many cool opportunities we are exploring. How would you like to see it? Seriously, we want ideas because that's one of the major things MTG can offer that's pretty unique in the collectible card game space, so let's hear them. I mean, you could add a code to each pack, but then they're getting rid of the advertising on the pack and the tokens, and yeah, that's a lot of codes to enter. So I see them not wanting to do that. I don't really know how they could do it, but someone brings up a good idea in a little bit, and we'll talk about it when it comes up to that. This is probably going to get buried, but I was wondering if you could explain the feedback button. So basically, sometimes when you complete a match, there's like, how much fun did you have, and you can pick frowny face, mediocre face, and happy face. And he's saying basically, what does this data do? And he says, by far, the number one correlation of a person saying they have fun is if they won. More seriously, it lets us look for trends across events. So they're using that information, so answer it truthfully. It's a simple question, but it gives context. And I guess it's cool. It kind of gives you it allows you to turn statistical data into players' emotions, which you can't really track. So that's pretty cool. Okay, here are some pretty cool ones. There's a bunch of random questions. What are your plans for Cube? Will it be standard, historic, or some other cube? The number one feature I would like to see in MTG is a cube with human drafting. And so then his response to that was, we'll play with a number of things, but we're planning to start with a historic cube so we get the largest pool to choose from. So based on the way they're wording that, they're going to make a cube, and then you can draft with it. You don't get to make a cube, is what it kind of sounds like. But we're starting to start with a historic cube, not with historic cubes. So that's kind of interesting. And then he has, can we do asynchronous human drafting? The same as Eternal. It has all the benefits of both of bot and human drafting. We've talked about this mode a lot, but right now we're focused on improving our bot drafting and adding human drafting. I don't actually know what that is. Maybe I'll do a video covering that soon. Leaving feedback. Where is the most effective place to leave feedback? It's really anywhere, but the forums are the most official. Why are we not seeing Theros board outside of draft and events? This is just a bug. It'll show up properly. Could you share more data with the community? We keep sharing this. We'll keep sharing the points that we think are valuable. The full data is really hard to parse. And then he thinks the burrito is good with beans and rice. Thank you for your quick response. Follow-up question. How are you planning on improving the bots? How are we not going to get an Eldraine 2.0 where the sets are great to draft, but with people, the bots are forced to all drafts to go the same? There are several things we're working on to improve the bots. One of the biggest is tweaking our tech so we can upload bot modifications more quickly and easily. We're also very eager for the additional data that human drafting will give us. That's very true. That's actually really interesting. Also, the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off structure moved back to Theros will give us more time to balance and refine the draft. So that's what they have to say. I can't really add more to that. What are your plans for the vault? We were told over a year ago that it was temporary, and yet here it is, without any mention of any kind of update. What are the plans for the vault? We don't have any plans to get rid of the vault. What we like about the vault versus other systems we've tinkered around with is how it provides long-term value for your duplicate commons and uncommons. It's hidden now in the main UI until it's ready to open, because an in-progress vault doesn't merit any kind of UI prominence, which I agree with. But we should have a better way of seeing our progress. Yes, I shouldn't have to go look at my logs or use an external tool. And it'll make its way to the profile page at some point. That's a wonderful change. It's a nice little quality of life change, but it's really nice. Can you tell us any details of the remastered set, like the philosophy of how they're being developed? We're working closely with R&D on the remastered process for these sets. The key goals are getting the bulk of Pioneer playables out to players soon and making great limited formats. Cards that saw little play in either constructed or limited are the ones we're likely to skip here. They kind of already said this, so there's not really much to say here, but it was heavily upvoted. Oh gosh. Hey team, thank you for doing this. I've been an MTG player since all the way back in circa Ice Age. I appreciate that nowadays the easy available of posted lists solve metas, the difficulty in creating a queue which would cater towards casual and kitchen table type play, in that regardless of structure the player base would quickly optimize lists. Nevertheless, most of my enjoyment from the game is coming up with odd off-brew metas. Building around the arcane adaptation is a good example. The only issue being that while cards like this are immensely attractive to a brewer, they are effectively unplayable in any competitive queue. While I recognize that there's effectively no way to render any play queue non-competitive, I'm curious as to what you think about the Magic experience, as I might pertain to the Timmies and Johnnies. The spikes are covered. Outside of direct challenges with friends, is there anything you can look forward to be aimed towards a mad brewer approach? So basically saying he likes to brew, but he wants a casual space. We love the fun. Brewing space as well. We've talked a lot about how we can build events that work for these players. Stand-up shake-up is one take at that, and we'll keep working on more. As you say, it's tricky to build a mode that doesn't encourage players to run run the top meta decks. There we go. So basically, it's very hard to say, hey, you can't run a meta deck. Alright, the traditional best of 3 draft can feel very long, and so I already read this one, so I'm just going to summarize it. He says, hey, having to win 7 games, that's a lot. You should reduce that. And he says, we're talking actively about this. Nothing new to announce here yet, but it's definitely on our radar. Please let us know what feels right. And a lot of people were saying like 3 or 4. Can you please elaborate on deck sharing? I can do that for him. Deck sharing, when you're in like a direct challenge, say your friend doesn't play a lot of MTG Arena, but you want to still play on MTG Arena with them, you can give them a deck of yours to play. Boom. Decks that use a large number of activate effects tend to be fairly miserable to play against. What are you going to do about it? Wizards, they said it's something they continuously work on, and you see that with little changes, and Magic can make it tricky and complex sometimes to smooth things out where we want to, but we'll keep working at it. Honestly, I feel like if there's like a bulk of the same trigger, you should be able to like resolve all of them without each little animation having to happen. Just poof. 32 Adani's Pride Mate triggers, poof, they all just happened. If your opponent lets that happen. Okay, so I understand the logistics of why you don't want to go through programming every card in all of Pioneer sets. And I think that most everyone is happy with the idea that skipping some cards will make the sets come out faster. But what do you plan to do to add cards into Arena in an emergency contingency? So basically he's saying, hey, say you add a bunch of these cards, but you skip over this one random uncommon that saw no play in Standard or Limited, and then it becomes a really big card in Pioneer. What are you going to do? And they said, this emergency contingency is one of the main roles we see Historic Anthologies taking once we start releasing the remastered Pioneer sets. If there's some immediate problem that comes up and we need quick action, we're likely to suspend one of the problematic cards until we could get the answer cards delivered. Cool. Okay, so this is a long one. What is some intended differences between Historic and Pioneer formats? Will these formats merge? Will Historic become Pioneer plus older cards added in Anthology releases? I was just asking this question. I should have just kept going. Is Historic intended to be a lower or higher power than Pioneer? We'll see where this goes, but the general direction we're thinking is that ultimately Historic will be the place where cards from across Magic's history can be played. Mostly the Historic becomes Vintage version from the other thread. So basically he's confirming what I said. This is basically going to become Vintage, which, ugh. But you can just shift into Pioneer. Whatever. Historic availability, or considering how Arena's current points players towards Standard as the most accepted way to play by permanently limiting the availability of rewards of other formats, I am very intrigued by the State of the Game section where they mention MTG Arena's formats, goals, and outlooks are very clearly changing from the Standard-only direction. Magic is more than one collectible card game. Can the team please elaborate on how this outlook applies to Historic and the upcoming Pioneer release? Currently, Historic has a paywall calendar and economic restrictions to the point where its support for the format appears to be grudging at most. How can even the most dedicated player justify spending $1,000 and a bajillion wild cards on Pioneer staples when it currently seems entirely possible that Pioneer will be off-season Thursdays with a 10,000 gold entry fee? He's referencing Brawl there. Commander, so then he says, right now Historic is available through the play queue and competitive events. What we're trying to do is bring the Historic rank queue up to each quarter to say during this time, Historic is the focus of MTG Arena. Historic is the focus of MTG Arena. Why it's not live all the time, we want to balance it with Standard being the focus for the other 2 months. By that logic, you should be canceling Standard for 2 months, which you really shouldn't, but whatever. But we're early on in the lifespan of Historic. We haven't even completed a full cycle of turning the rank queue off and on again. We're going to see how players engage with it in mid-March. So mid-March is when the Historic Anthology is coming out. Okay, making something Commander is obviously extremely popular format, with Historic Brawl being explored with an upcoming event, which is awesome. Do the Arena team have any thoughts on allowing EDH format / decks in Arena? Making something that feels like Commander takes an awful lot of cards. The current card pool may not be deep enough to make 100-card singleton decks that feel different enough from one to another. I think it'll take some more releases before we have enough for Commander. And then, Arena has some delicious Eternal cards hidden away. The Momir Vig and Theros Vintage event led to us having Black Lotus, Grizzlebrand, Gingitis. Are there any plans to make these craftable for use in casual games? We're talking a good bit about ways to bring added fun and variety to direct challenges, but for now, we aren't looking to release those cards. Wow, that was a lot to talk about. It was all very basic, so I don't think I really need to explain it. I'm sorry. I don't think I really need to explain it. I understand why some store items can only be bought with gems, but why are some cosmetics only available for purchase with gold? Gems are generally considered the premium currency and the one that Wizards of the Coast gets actual money for. Yet gold is the actual limiting resource. Why not offer either option for these? And he says this is almost always due to a minor technical reason, which is kind of funny. So they're not being nice. They're not being like, hey, gold only, because you know what? We want players who, free-to-play players. No, they're saying, hey, this is a bug. I don't understand what that bug would be, but whatever. When you add custom when will you add custom key bindings? Left shift plus enter is an incredibly cumbersome stroke. These are on our list, but we don't have a defined timeline. So he's basically saying, I want to be able to pass the turn with the button on the side of my mouth. Mouse, not mouth. Yes, you just have to click inside your mouth. Okay. And then, he said, there's another person, it would be nice to have the standard shakeup ban more cards than it currently does. It ends up missing a few each time, or there becomes one strongest deck that mostly seems like banning 1 or 2 cards from the tier 1 meta decks isn't enough to really shake things up. Totally agree. Honestly, and this is silly, we're currently soft capped at the number of cards we can ban based on what fits in the event description. Well, some events, you just put them on your website. We also need to lock in the ban list early. Why? Which often leads to the misses you mentioned. We're working to address both these issues. Why do you have to ban them? I mean, you can maybe a month early, but by then the standard has been set and it's not changing. Are there any plans to help out those who haven't started on board since beta? To get caught up in order to participate in Historic or later Pioneer. I started with M20, so I can barely have the wild cards to keep up with that format, yet alone crafting older cards. I agree. If they're going to start releasing 4 sets per year, 4 Historic Anthologies and multiple Historic sets, I'm not going to be able to, like, what do I do? Do I just skip Historic sets or remastered sets? Because I want to play Standard, but then I'm going to get so far behind that I'm never going to be able to play Pioneer, which is going to be kind of annoying. As we do with Dominaria, we continue to run flashback drafts of older sets, so players who missed them can pick up cards. We'll keep an eye on this as well and see what's needed. Yeah, I think they really need a way for players to balance, because they're saying, okay, we can't let players get more rewards or whatever, like they have to deal with the thing, but they also have to participate in more formats, which means they need more rewards. I can't just take the same amount of gold I've been getting ever since it was just Standard and now play Standard, Brawl, Historic, and Pioneer. Okay, as a player with a very limited income, why are you basically making no more free events? And then the workshops, they're pre-cons, so those aren't fun. That's what he's saying. We have found events that would provide pre-con decks get much higher participation than events requiring bringing your own deck. Yes, but does that make it more fun? No. Is the answer to that. For now, we're thinking of the workshop events as pre-con focused, but that could change. Overall, we're trying to find the right balance of events with and without entry fees, and we're not there yet, but we'll keep experimenting. Okay, valid answer, but I don't like the whole 2 to 3 times more popular. That's because I can just pop in without literally any consequence and just be like, oh, this is boring. Concede. I want to see player retention on those too, but whatever. What is a good estimate for when human drafting will come out? This is humongous. We're actively working on it, most likely the first half of the year. So by July, most likely, we will have human drafting. That is awesome. I was expecting that to be like a December release. Will MTG Arena ever come to consoles? We're getting some really good questions here. There are currently no plans to be on consoles, but no platforms are off limits. What console would you like to see? And a lot of people were like, Nintendo Switch. When is Lord of Atlantis getting added to Historic? Which the professor said. And he said, just for you, coming in 2024. So if that actually happens in 2024, it'll be kind of interesting. When are we getting a mobile app? Wow, Lexi got a lot of these good ones. Still on the roadmap, just not ready to talk about it. Any plans to help under-supported tribes in Historic with card drops? No concrete plans, but we'll definitely enjoy doing things like this and have before. Let us know what tribes are important to you. Will Amonkhet Remastered and future remastered sets be playable in Historic? Yes. Can you please give us a rough estimate of how long you imagine it will take Pioneer to get up and running on Arena? Depends on what you mean by get Pioneer up and running. We plan to have a major delivery of Pioneer cards this year. We plan to continue adding as quickly as we can after that. At least one new set per year. Hopefully more. It'll be interesting to see interesting to find out where in that process it feels like it's enough of the cards to really count as being Pioneer. We're not really sure what that'll mean or how long that'll take. Whoa, so they're saying we're a major delivery of Pioneer cards. So a ton of Pioneer cards this year, but then only one set per year? Does that mean they're planning like a Pioneer Remastered? Or is it because they already have a bunch of the cards kind of done? Apparently they're not completely done. They can just release them all like really fast in a row. And by major, do you mean like 3 sets, 4 sets? Or do you mean like a Pioneer Master set with like 1,200 cards? Or are you adding the Mystery Booster or something? I don't know. This really needs to be clarified. Like, only 1 set per year? That's going to take a long time to get back to Return to Ravnica if you're doing 1 set per year. I really hope they mean like 1 block, but I don't know. You can't go too fast, otherwise players are going to feel overwhelmed, but you can't go too slow, otherwise people are going to be like, where is Pioneer? Do you have ever plans to have our DCI numbers linked with our Arena accounts? That is one way we could get goodies for playing in our paper events rather than just 1 per account codes. We aren't ready to talk about it yet, but there are talks about that, which is very interesting. That's probably really good. Getting players to link paper and digital Magic is very good. Anyway, can we save or visit closed draft? Sucks that you can go 7-0 but can't see your deck unless they're adding a bunch of features like this tomorrow. When human drafting is released, you plan for it to completely replace bot drafting in both ranked and traditional. Also gotta ask, any idea when this will happen? We do not plan for human drafting to completely replace bot drafting. There are plenty of good reasons to keep bot drafting around, even with fellow humans to draft with. Our goal is to implement human drafting sometime in the first half of this year. It'll be shocking if it's not in by the end of the year. I don't really have anything else to add. Are multiplayer formats being considered? And then he gives examples. Are multiplayer formats being considered? Absolutely. Are they on the 2020 roadmap? Nope. That makes a lot of sense. Those are going to be the updates. Like, 2019 was kind of a lame year. Brawl was the biggest thing, which was awesome. But 4-player modes, remastered sets, those are the really big, like, Arena being Arena. Like, a lot of the updates now are just events, new set, events, new set, events, new sets. So seeing these new features are going to be awesome. As someone who likes to play a lot of jank, sometimes win only... Okay, I'm just going to skip this one. Sorry, there's nothing interesting there. What are your plans to bring the gathering back to MTGA now that we don't have any chat or guild clans? No way to foster communication in-game. We can't interact with anyone in any meaningful way. We are still extremely early on our integration of in-game social features. The ability to direct message your friends in-game is literally next on our list, and we'll take it from there. So that means they haven't started it, but it'll be coming. So expect it soon-ish. When human draft will be out, basically, this one's asking, are bot drafters and human drafters going to be mixed? No. For human drafts, it's going to work similar to MTGO League, where you'll be playing against other human drafters outside of your pods, but bot drafters and human drafters will not interact. What are you currently focused at? I'm kind of worried about the game's optimization. Basically saying that there's lots of teams. There's always an optimization team. Are there plans to have deck sharing? Yeah, and they're planning to do it by the end of the year. Cool. Again, a lot of things about deck sharing. They're trying to release it this year again. That's what they said. And that's it. Okay, this has been a really long video. Half an hour. I think this might be one of my longest videos I've ever made. But there was just so much information. I feel like I had to talk about all of it. I didn't want you guys to miss something. Because maybe I missed something within the text. Or within the responses. So let me know if you saw something that I didn't point out. But these were really exciting. I think that we earned a lot of information that wasn't even like new features, but timeline. That's always really nice to just know when are things happening. Transparency is always really nice, and so it's awesome to see this. I really hope they kind of do one of these with every set, or with every release. That'd be really cool. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I know it's been a long one. I want to thank you for sticking around. If you guys stick to the end, well, you guys are troopers. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.